A man's life is shattered when his wife mysteriously disappears, and he's accused of a crime he did not commit. But the truth is far darker than anyone could have imagined. In the end, who will pay the price for a life built on lies? It was a quiet evening when Sarah Bennett disappeared. Her husband, Michael, came home from work to find the house empty, dinner untouched, and her car still parked in the driveway. At first, he thought she had gone for a walk, or perhaps was out with a friend. But as the hours passed and she didn't return, worry began to settle in. He called her phone multiple times, but it went straight to voicemail. His concern deepened when he checked the living room and found her phone, keys, and purse on the couch, as if she had just left them there carelessly. He sat down, feeling the weight of something unsettling in the pit of his stomach. Something wasn't right. Michael waited for about an hour before calling the police. He didn't want to panic, but the thought that Sarah might have been hurt, or worse, made him sick to his stomach. The police arrived quickly and began their investigation. They searched the house, the surrounding area, and even questioned the neighbors, but there was no sign of Sarah. It was as if she had vanished without a trace. The next few days were a blur. Michael spent his time answering questions, giving statements, and hoping for news. The police began looking into Sarah's background, and they asked Michael if they had any issues in their marriage. He told them that things had been fine. Sarah had seemed happy, and there were no signs of trouble. But they kept asking, pressing him for more details about their relationship. Michael was starting to feel like a suspect in his own home. As the investigation continued, the police uncovered a piece of evidence that made everything look worse for Michael. A hidden CCTV camera, positioned outside their home, had captured a blurry image of a person entering the house. The person was wearing a hoodie that looked remarkably like one Michael often wore. The figure appeared to be carrying something, though it was unclear who or what it was. The police questioned Michael again, and though he insisted he had nothing to do with his wife's disappearance, they were growing more suspicious. The investigation took a more damning turn when the police found Michael's hoodie in the apartment. It was tucked away in the back of the closet, stained with what looked like blood. Upon testing, it was confirmed. The blood was human, and it matched Sarah's. The discovery of the hoodie and the blood seemed to point directly to Michael as the prime suspect in her disappearance. The authorities arrested him, charging him with the kidnapping and possible murder of his wife. The media quickly latched onto the case, portraying Michael as a man with something to hide. The public believed the worst. Michael's once normal life spiraled into chaos as he sat in jail awaiting his trial. The evidence against him seemed overwhelming. The hoodie with Sarah's blood, the footage showing someone in his clothes. How could he possibly explain it? Michael's lawyers met with him one grim evening to discuss his case. They told him, in no uncertain terms, that there was little they could do to help him. The evidence against him was damning, and despite his insistence on innocence, they feared the prosecution's case was too strong. They explained that, given the severity of the charges, he could be facing years in prison. They even mentioned the possibility of a life sentence if convicted. Michael sat there in stunned silence as his lawyers walked him through the grim realities of his situation. He felt a cold sense of despair settling in as the full weight of what was happening hit him. Alone in his cell later that night, Michael stared at the walls, fully convinced that he would be convicted and spend the rest of his life in jail. He was trapped, powerless, and crushed by the idea that his future had been stolen from him. Then, during the trial, something unexpected happened. A witness came forward, someone who had been traveling through a nearby city just days after Sarah's disappearance. The woman reported seeing a woman matching Sarah's description at a bus station, acting suspiciously as though she was trying to keep a low profile. This new information sparked the reopening of the investigation. The authorities quickly traced the witness's account and followed the leads. They discovered that Sarah had taken a bus to a nearby city under an assumed identity. The blood on Michael's hoodie? It wasn't from an attack. It was part of Sarah's plan. She had staged everything, including her own disappearance. The footage of the figure in the hoodie was part of her setup, a deliberate attempt to make it look as though Michael had been involved. The police reopened the case, and after a thorough investigation, they found evidence that Sarah had been planning her disappearance for months. She had planted the bloody hoodie, planted false clues, and made sure everything pointed to Michael. The final clue came when they found Sarah, alive and well, in a small apartment in the other city where the witness had spotted her. Michael was released from jail, his charges dropped. He had been exonerated, but the emotional toll of the whole ordeal had shattered him. He could hardly comprehend the depths of Sarah's deception. The woman he had loved, the woman he had trusted, had orchestrated everything: the kidnapping, the false evidence, and even the destruction of his reputation. Sarah, meanwhile, was arrested and charged with false report, framing an innocent person, and her intentional disappearance. The entire community was stunned to learn that she had not only faked her death, but had also set her husband up for a crime he did not commit. The trial was over, and Michael walked out of the courtroom a free man, but he would never be the same. The betrayal was too deep. His life, his marriage, had been destroyed by the very person he had vowed to spend it with. He had been on the verge of being convicted for a crime he didn't commit, and it had all been part of Sarah's twisted plan. Sarah's life, too, was ruined. She had gotten what she wanted: freedom from her marriage, but at a tremendous cost. Her actions had destroyed the lives of everyone around her, including her own. The story ended not with justice served, but with the haunting realization that sometimes the greatest betrayal comes from the one you trust the most. The story of Michael and Sarah is a stark reminder of the power of deception and manipulation. Sarah's selfish actions not only hurt her husband, but also caused irreversible damage to herself. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild. And sometimes the people closest to us, those we believe we know the best, are capable of actions that shatter everything we thought was real. The real cost of betrayal is not just the damage it does to others, but the toll it takes on the one who betrays. Sarah's quest for freedom came at the cost of her own humanity, showing that when we choose to deceive and manipulate for personal gain, we ultimately lose our integrity and destroy everything that matters. This story serves as a warning. Truth, honesty, and trust should never be taken for granted. And when they are, the consequences can be far-reaching and devastating.